Hello, this is Leonard Rich, Superintendent of Laurel School District, and I am pleased to bring you the next in our series of videos on the return to school. This video will deal with synchronous instruction. Synchronous instruction is one of the three learning pathways available to Laurel students. In addition to the traditional return with proper mitigation, in addition to the option of an established cyber program, students will have the option to attend school synchronously in a virtual format. So synchronous learning is a platform whereby a teacher can instruct a brick and mortar classroom while at the same time projecting a lesson virtually to students in another location. Now, as you can imagine, this is something new. This is the unknown. No virtual platform before has tried to do both at the same time, instruct in a classroom and perform the lesson to students who are not physically in the classroom. In order to accomplish this synchronous learning, the district has purchased additional equipment, microphones, cameras, other devices, Chromebooks, laptops that can do these recordings. We are currently training and will continue to train our teachers, hence why we are devoting August 26th, 27th, and 28th as Act 80 days for a deep dive into synchronous learning. How will that look? How will we create it? What will it be? So that when we start on August 31st, our students in the traditional school will not be waiting while the teachers are trying to get their synchronous lessons up and running. That they certainly, in the beginning, there may be some stumbles, but we hope that they are left hand and right hand to the best of their ability. That is also why we have chosen to start school 1 hour later, start traditional school. The first hour will be devoted to synchronous instruction, the creating, the preparation, the extended delivery. It will be an opportunity for teachers to reach out to students who have opted for the synchronous environment, perhaps remediate, perhaps differentiate, whatever the need might be. The 1 hour is devoted to continuing our curricular planning and preparation for instructional strategies that match the brick and mortar curriculum so they can be as left hand and right hand when all parties are engaged. The lessons will be recorded in the synchronous world. They'll be archived by the instructor, very similar to what we're doing at this time. I'm delivering a video. We'll archive it, and people can watch it at their leisure. This capability also exists to have others on there in real time. Certainly in this scenario, this is not a real-time scenario, but it could be. It has that function. It has that capability. For teachers who teach the same thing multiple times, there is the opportunity to record it once and then push it out multiple times. But it must be available for real-time attendance as well as follow-up questions. We do not anticipate any violations of FERPA. Calling on students in a classroom is not a violation of FERPA. The synchronous instruction will take place within the Google Classroom. As such, the user would need a login. Only those students who are enrolled have the login and have access to any and all materials posted within that classroom. The virtual classroom recording will be maintained as a record during the period of instruction by the teacher. The recordings will be managed by the classroom teacher as part of Google Classroom. They will be maintained only during the period of instruction. If the teacher wants to archive them for future use, they may, but that's their instructional decision. The district has no expectation of archiving the instructional lessons beyond the time of instruction. Our safety net are the protections within the Google Classroom as provided by that platform. So I encourage you to go to google.com and check into their privacy and security. Go to Google and Google privacy and security. You'll be able to find links to how that platform is secured. So the Laurel School District will also be creating language pertaining to student conduct in the virtual classrooms. Again, this is a new environment for everybody. Keep in mind that not only do we want to be good at what we do, we want to be good at the unknown, right? This is all new to everybody. So as we develop a new environment in which that we're going to deliver instruction, we will create language pertaining to student conduct in the virtual classroom. Students and parents need to understand that the video recordings are only online and available to students within the student's own classroom, that they cannot be shared or disseminated due to privacy concerns, and they are the intellectual property of the instructors. And students portrayed in those videos are only in those videos relative to the classroom that they signed up for. This code of conduct document will be created and required to be signed by both the students and the teachers. Now, the teachers are somewhat concerned. Well, what happens if I share a personal record accidentally? Well, certainly to err is human and to forgive is divine. And certainly we don't expect people to be perfect. We do expect them to be responsible. There's a difference between a mistake and willful negligence. However, the Political Subdivision Tort Claims Act that governs Pennsylvania municipalities, including school district, the Tort Claims Act as it's known, grants immunity to school districts in many types of manners. So if there's an accident that does not necessarily constitute negligence or willful disregard for the law, we ask that teachers be mindful of their duties and responsibilities in keeping educational records private. But if an accident happens, that does not necessarily constitute negligence and thereby not grounds for severe penalty. Now, there's always the question, well, where are you getting all the money for this? Well, if you may be aware, there have been grants released by the state and federal government, and we are utilizing those grants to upgrade our infrastructure, to provide PPE, to provide devices, to provide cameras, to provide microphones. So there's been extensive planning and preparation going into what we're doing, but it does come at a cost, and those costs have been largely covered by grant funds. We do have some concerns about the school infrastructure. So part of what we're doing in preparation for the launch of the school year is we're running more Cat 5, and we are increasing bandwidth and capacity at this very moment. We are also aware in the synchronous world that some families might have multiple students participating in virtual instruction at the same time at their house. And what's that impact going to be on the home internet connection? Will it allow booting up problems, lagging, etc.? The district has worked with families on an individual basis, and we will continue to do so. We also have a limited amount of Chromebooks that have an LTE in them. And in my layman's understanding, that's a hotspot. That's an integral part of the device, and then therefore would increase the availability of access to the internet. So relative to supervision of students online, there's only so much we're going to be able to do with a virtual student to keep them, if you will, from doing things that they shouldn't. We hope our lessons, and we believe our lessons will be engaging, and we believe they'll have the opportunity to participate in lessons. But what if a student chooses not to pay attention? What if a student chooses not to do the required work? Well, certainly we're going to address that. But if a student's participating in the virtual world, then we're going to need some cooperation from whomever is in charge of supervising that student at home. And therefore, we understand that we have a responsibility to redirect inappropriate behavior and off-task behavior. But as with any other virtual instruction, a large part of the responsibility for on-task behavior rests with the environment in the home. So whether they're attended, unattended, directed, redirected at home. As we go into the unknown, and again, as I stress wanting to be good at the unknown, what exactly does a good lesson look like in the virtual world, and how do we make that work? It's a huge undertaking, and our staff is taking that very seriously. And that's, again, why they've asked for this extra time and been given the extra Act 80 days in order to develop this in the very best manner that they can, given the time allotted. The goal of the synchronous instruction is to keep both the online and the traditional students engaged in the same material as defined by content standard at the same time. Should a student need to self-isolate, or should they simply choose to be an online synchronous student, then they have the ability to step in to the teacher's classroom and work on the same content standards. The expectation is that a synchronous lesson, including time for independent practice, be aligned to the brick and mortar lesson as much as possible. Certainly, they can't be exactly identical all the time. There will be some exceptions. There will be some alterations. For example, any manipulative that might be used for an experiment may have to be practiced in the brick and mortar setting, but demonstrated in the online setting. Now, in the elementary school, we have things such as recess, snack time, etc., and we don't expect the students to be online at that time. Certainly, you could leave your Google Meet open, and that child could go do their own recess, their own lunch, what have you, and come back if you don't want to log in and re-log in and log out, etc. But certainly, no teacher is required to account for a student during non-instructional times. I think it's very important to address that we're not just saying this is what we're going to do in the fall is the same as what we did in the spring. We did a phenomenal job creating a virtual environment in a week. And we managed to navigate the last 60 days of school. But that is not good enough for what we need to do this fall. We need to do a better job at direct instruction. We need to do a better job of minimizing platforms and making things more user-friendly. So I do believe that the Laurel School District did a very good job in a very short period of time. However, reviewing a K-12 staff of over 70 teachers, the expectations were vastly different, even among the same grade levels, even among the same instructional assignments within secondary departments. The most significant instructional piece that was absent or inconsistent during the previous shutdown was consistent direct instruction. If we fail to provide direct instruction, then we're failing to provide the appropriate education to our students. We need to do a better job with the direct instruction piece in the virtual world. Hence, this synchronous option, we believe, will do that. We don't want our families to feel the burden that they must be the teacher. Our teachers are the teacher, want to be the teacher, want to deliver the instruction, and we're giving them every opportunity to do so. Now, attendance is different than participation. We expect students to attend in real time, but what if they don't? Well, then they're marked absent. We will be keeping brick and mortar attendance and virtual attendance for a combined daily attendance. From there, if a student is absent from the brick and mortar and absent in the real-time performance of the lesson, but does the work because the lessons are archived, then certainly they can get credit for work that they've done, but obviously it will be an absence. So it's just like any other absence from school that you got to do your makeup work. The advantage is that the makeup work has been archived and is easily and readily available to the student. Now, with more time to plan and prepare, we also have more time to create accountability. So our expectations for students in the virtual classroom are very similar and identical to our expectations for students in the brick and mortar classroom. We have done a better job as a district to plan and prepare. Therefore, more normal protocols will apply. We expect the same deadlines for synchronous instruction as we expect for brick and mortar instruction. The goal of planning ahead is to eliminate some of the items that we had to institute on the fly last year. By giving the daily expectations ahead of time, we expect that the deadlines for both synchronous and traditional instruction to be simultaneous. Another thing we did last year that we will not be doing this year is we created a basement, that is a grade that can be no lower than, for the fourth 9 weeks. By district policy, we have a basement in the first and third 9 weeks of no lower than a 56. But with more time to plan and prepare, we feel that we do not need to extend that to a 56 for the second and fourth 9 weeks. So keep in mind that your students will be held accountable for regular grading procedures. Now, your teachers are going to have options. The first option is to have the synchronous live lesson, the ability to take attendance, the ability to ask questions. The second option is if they teach the same subject multiple times, then they can record the first lesson, push it out multiple times during the day, but they still have to take attendance and the students still have to have the ability to ask questions. The third option that the teachers can do is they can do what's called a flipped classroom. And this takes planning, preparation, and time as well, in that they would pre-record an entire lesson for the virtual world because the brick and mortar lesson cannot be replicated in the virtual world, because they think it would be more effective virtually to do B as compared to what the brick and mortar classes are doing A. So with the flipped classroom, they would pre-record what is necessary and then push it out. There would still be the ability to take attendance. And then at the end of that, they would still have the ability to ask questions. But the actual direct instruction would be pre-recorded. Synchronous instruction is not going to be easy. It is a massive undertaking to try to be good at the unknown. We can do it. We can do it together as a community of students and parents and teachers and administration and support staff. I expect us to be good at the unknown. I believe we will capitalize upon the opportunities given to us and to provide our students with a synchronous option if they're sick, if they don't feel safe, if a sibling is sick, if a parent is sick, whatever the case might be. We have offered a continuum of services for our educational community. And we appreciate the honor it is to serve the Laurel community, and we appreciate the patience, work, and cooperation that we get from the Laurel community. Thank you. And in our next video series, we will look at a summary of our return to school plan. As always, I appreciate your attention and time during this pandemic to make yourself aware of what's being done within the Laurel School District.